The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular franchises. And today we're discussing Leatherface from 2017. We are so deep into the weeds of franchise at this point that I'm honestly going to say I can't keep track of this shit anymore. That's just my top line view now.
Well, there's nothing to keep track of. is part of it. I mean, this one is because it's a prequel. Like, this is the first one in a while that was going to be like 3 movies that had something to do with each other.
Right.
Out of the like 8 or 9 or, whatever. There was going to be a sequel. Mm-hmm. But then I guess like Lionsgate dragged its feet about it.
Yeah.
And so that didn't happen. They ended up doing a prequel thing. And it's wild to me that they're like, okay, we're finally going to tie this together. We're going to get back to this and tie it to the first one. We're going to call the sequel Texas Chainsaw. We're going to get rid of the massacre entirely. And then we're going to get rid of the Texas and Chainsaw for the prequel. We want to connect it, but we don't want people to know. Shh.
Right. This is the second movie that's called Leatherface, too. That was what, part 3, I believe.
That was part 3.
Yeah, the original part 3. So this is a third film in a continuity that's a prequel that is also named Leatherface.
Yeah.
That was also a third film in a continuity, Leatherface.
Yeah, so this is Leatherface Part 2, which is the third film of the 9th series. Yeah.
This is why we do this show, everybody. Like, this is fascinating.
Yeah, they've just they're just doing their own thing. They're just freeballing now. It doesn't matter.
And there are so many tie-ins to different characters that I honestly did not pick up on the first time that I watched this. And I was reading a couple of reviews about it that called out, this is Drayton. This is a brother of somebody else in part 2. And I was like, you guys are trying way too hard.
Yeah.
All right. This was Romulus before Romulus came out, as far as I'm concerned.
Like, again, for being a prequel and for going, okay, we are going to tie ourselves to the first one. We're going to make a prequel. They did the same thing that like the Pet Sematary Bloodlines did, where they went, oh, well, nothing that's going to tie into what comes next. Like,
right.
we're going to make the cook a beefy and a killer, even though that's specifically what he wasn't in the first one.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's very strange. And it really wants to tie. I mean, there's stuff that specifically ties to the Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Yep.
Which makes sense. But I understand I was reading an interview with Seth Sherwood, the screenwriter, with Blumhouse, was talking about doing this movie and talking about how he knew what people would pitch for like the sequels. He's like, you want to do X, Y, Z, whatever. I don't want to do that. I'm going to do something else. And while I admire that, doing a prequel is just so wrong-headed. Mm-hmm. I can't even, and it's not even like, we'll get into the problems that this movie has, but just as a concept, just a bad idea, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's also that idea in horror franchises now to like tell us why a killer is why he is and all that kind of thing, which I've just never been a fan of. So I really did try to watch this on its own merits and just say, like, you know what? I don't like the thesis of this film. I don't care why Leatherface is why he is. So I'm going to try to watch this on its own merits. There's a few things I liked about it, but otherwise it was hard for me to get there.
Right. Well, it's one of those that we've experienced before where, and I actually want to start keeping a list of this, where it's like, this was just another movie that you then decided was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know that we talked about that with some of the later Jasons, particularly Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just sort of feels like this would be a okay movie if it didn't try to have anything to do with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but
you get a little Mickey and Mallory stuff going. You get a little Natural Born Killers at time with this.
The Devil's Rejects, which is funny because it's like the Devil's Rejects reference is like an homage in parts to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So we have like an homage to an homage. And it's like great, cool.
Yeah. And man, I've only watched Devil's Rejects once and I was late to the party on that one. And I remember kind of liking it for what it was.
There's 3 of them. So we'll end up doing it, I'm sure.
Oh, good grief. I didn't realize that.
House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, and then like Free from Hell.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because I mean like just the fact that they went, hey, what if we had a character that was basically Sherry Moon Zombie, but just a little less irritating.
Right. And a little less married to Rob Zombie. This movie was directed by two directors, Alexandra Bastillo and Julian Maury, who they were the duo behind the film called Inside. It's a film that's in the whole new French extremity that they say. Have you seen that movie?
I have not, and I was reading about it, and apparently
it's nasty.
And that's my understanding is apparently that like those movies like that and Martyrs and High Tension are technically not the new French extremity. They're new French horror, which is a subset of that. And I just stopped reading it because I'm like, that's very boring. I'm sure there's a discussion to be had about all that.
Right.
It's not something I'm particularly interested in right now, particularly for this movie. But yeah, this definitely has that in common with other of those kind of movies that I have seen. Those French movies. They're definitely a lot more. Of course, they had to make it horny a little bit because that's part of it.
Yep.
And just some of the gore, just the vibe is different for the way they do gore. But that being said, the way they do gore here also kind of sucks. Like the well, I'm sure we'll get to it, but like the diner scene.
Yeah, the diner.
Kind of a letdown. Although the part when he shoots that one lady and clearly just someone just threw some blood in the air.
Exactly.
That was great. That was fantastic.
Yeah. Shot in Bulgaria for tax reasons.
Bulgaria, Texas.
Yeah, Bulgaria, Texas. Yeah, don't mess with Bulgaria. But there, look, I know that a lot goes into making a film budget and getting pre-production off the ground, but there is something to be said about the purity of you film a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie in Texas, not Bulgaria. Yeah. Nothing against our Bulgarian listeners. I hope you enjoy the film and maybe even worked on it and that kind of thing.
One guy, I wonder what they're going to say about me.
Right.
We love you. You're great.
Yeah.
No, but oddly enough, Leatherface, as we discussed, Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3, shot in California. So
correct. Oh,
if your movie's going to be titled Leatherface, you got to get out of Texas.
Man, there are too many tie-ins to this.
Yeah, they tried to cover for that by filming it all in that boiled piss yellow of the Texas Chainsaw remake. Which, I mean, just stylistically, it's not something I enjoy, but I honestly like it. I didn't watch this movie going like, well, this isn't Texas. I have no idea.
Sure.
I'm from the Midwest.
Well, it's not Texas, and it's also not the 1950s. There was very little that I saw in this film that kind of sung to me that we're in the 50s at all. Well,
I think it's supposed to be the 70s when it's happening, because it's 70s? Like it's supposed to happen. Well, it starts in the 50s, and then it's like no. I think you're right. I think it's supposed to be like the 60s or something, because he spends like 10 years at Gorman.
Yeah,
at the institution, and then comes out. So I think it's like the late 60s.
Woof. This was also, I think it's worth noting, Tobe Hooper's final credit as producer before he died in 2017. Now, granted, a producer on a movie like this could just be like, send me a check for $200,000 and you've got the rights to do this. Or was he involved? I don't know.
This was a movie that had like 9 executive producers.
So that, yeah.
Yeah. And you always hear like, that if there's a billion writers, that's not a good sign. But like, what does it mean if there's just a ton of executive producers? That seems very strange for me. Also, the fact that one of the opening title cards of this movie, like the studio logos, is like AT&T Direct TV.
Well, because it was a direct to TV release, and then it got like a limited theatrical because there was a weird rights issue and.
Yeah, because again, Lionsgate just drug their feet on like getting this thing done, because apparently like they were ready to move forward. There was someone that was like, "Hey, we're going to make the sequel to Texas 3D. It did well enough, and it's going to be called Texas Chainsaw 4." And everyone was like, "That doesn't make any sense." And other people were like, "You don't even have the rights. Why were you doing that?" So it got all confused. But they had stuff ready to go like at an earlier time, and Lionsgate, I think, sat on the production of this movie, but then also sat on the movie after it was made.
Yeah,
and but the fact that it was just like direct, it was like. AOL presents Leatherface. It was just unexpected.
Just a long way from Baghead, just in that sense. Like
a long way from Warner Brothers. Yeah.
Take yourself back to the opening of the first original film and then fast forward to AOL presents Leatherface. And that's just that. Oh, well, God.
It's funny to be like, back in the glory days when it was Canon Films. So how far we've fallen from Canon Films.
It's an AOL Warner Brothers conglomerate now producing Leatherface.
Yeah.
So, boy, howdy. Okay. So we're starting in the 1950s, as we mentioned, and we start off seeing "Happy Birthday to Jed," and Drayton is there. And
we made Drayton beefy. You don't need to do that. I'm sorry. I'm just really mad about that.
You're
like he's a weaselly wiener guy, and you made him beefy.
Right. They really Chris Pined it up on this. You know.
Yeah.
We get the sense that I did kind of chuckle at this, I admit, when the beginning scene is their take on the dinner table sequence. I'm not saying they did it well, but I was just like, hey, that's something, you know?
Yeah. Well, it had all these like fisheye lenses,
Beastie Boys lenses.
Yeah, it had like this energy to it that I was like, okay, we're getting a little weird with it. This is kind of fun, and of course, Lily Taylor.
Yes,
I am a huge Lily Taylor fan. One of my first crushes from Say Anything. And I think she's also just a fantastic actress, but she's in a lot of not great horror movies.
Right.
But she actually, I was watching behind the scenes. It was originally going to be Angela Bettis, who's in the movie. Some people might know from the movie May. She's also in Toby Hooper's The Toolbox Murders.
Oh, yes.
But she had to bail out to scheduling stuff. And apparently the director came to Lily Taylor, the directors, and told her that they wanted to do something that was a cross between Terrence Malick's Badlands and the Virgin Suicides. I absolutely, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
When are you going to make that one? I'm very excited to see it.
I saw another quote that was like, it's like Badlands with gore. I'm like, great. Let's see that.
It is outside. A couple people wear jeans.
Yeah.
Same movie.
There's some sun in the background. You know?
Yeah.
No hands through wheat, but you know, I'm sure we could
Thank
get
God.
there.
No. Listeners, I had to watch both the Rebel Moon movies, the director's cuts. They're awful, and so much time is spent on wheat. I hate wheat now. I'm celiac because of watching
gluten
Rebel
free
Moon.
because of Rebel.
Yeah, I developed an allergy. Thanks, Zack Snyder.
I love that. We can blame Zack Snyder for a lot of things. Didn't expect gluten allergy to be on there.
Turns out.
Yeah. The family presents Jed with a chainsaw for some reason. Now, let's not get tied around the chain here, but maybe we should, because I'm doing this for myself and for the audience, but the remake prequel had him just lifting up the chainsaw and walking out with it. Correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Because that stuck with me for good or for ill. I was like, okay, that's how we're presenting. But this is a prequel to the original.
Yes.
In that timeline. So keeping these things separate in my brain, it's just, we're going to present a 10-year-old with a chainsaw to hack somebody up.
They give it to him because it's revealed that they have captured a thief on the premises. Yeah, trying to steal their pigs. And so as a gift, the mom, Verna, who was the dead body played by Sally by Marilyn Burns from Texas Chainsaw. I'm confusing myself.
Exactly.
But they gave him a chainsaw that was frankly far too big.
Now remember, bad people like him, they're trying to break our family apart. But we're not going to let that happen, right? Now go on now, pick it up. Jed, pick it up.
What's the right size chainsaw for a 10-year-old?
One of those, there used to be a, it was like yellow and had like a red thing, and you pulled the cord, it would just buzz. That was it. Or at least a smaller one, because it's about as big as he is.
Yeah.
Tries to cut the guy, cuts his leg, and kind of chickens out, and Grandpa has to save the day and knock him out. And that occurred to me that it's interesting in this arc, and frankly all of them, that for how much the first two really fetishize Grandpa, nothing with that guy.
Right.
Nothing. Like, because you can argue because with Verna kind of being this overbearing matriarch, if you wanted to, you could tie it to part 2 where there's the secret, mom in the chainsaw mama at the end.
Man, remember her? I'm sure why hasn't that been brought into some lore?
Yeah, I don't know. It's such a great visual, but it just seems funny that the Grandpa was such a centerpiece, and they're like, no, we don't need him. Like in 4, he just leaves the movie, which is one of my favorite things of that movie, is the guy just gets up and is like, I'm done being in this movie now.
Right.
I bet so. It was nice to see him. So Grandpa showing up and in fact killing a guy with one blow, because
he's the best.
But it also, it makes me confused a little bit, again, because it specifically is telling you this is tied to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
They have pigs. There's not a slaughterhouse. the whole thing was there's a slaughterhouse and cows, and that's where they worked. But they're like, no, they're pig farmers. Okay, I guess maybe the slaughterhouse came later. We'd have to wait for Leatherface 1.5 or something.
Right, where they outsourced.
Yeah, it's just these explanations that raise more questions or they just aren't needed.
Yeah,
it was nice to see Grandpa. I guess I'll leave it with that.
Right, and seeing him take the guy out in one blow.
Yeah,
it's Grandpa Prime. He's still there.
yeah.
He's there as he should be.
I guarantee in the theater I probably would have gone, oh, out loud.
Right.
Did it.
And wasn't the hitchhiker in the scene too? And
no.
Okay.
The hitchhiker wasn't. Well, I mean, like there's another young boy.
Okay.
The only other name that gets mentioned is Nubbins, who is in fact.
There we go.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you're right.
No,
the Nubbins is the hitchhiker because I forget that Chop Top is in Vietnam.
Right.
Eventually. But like when they're little kids, I don't think Chop Top is there. I think it's just Nubbins. So we don't, I mean, no, because Chop Top doesn't exist in this universe.
That's correct.
God damn it. This is stupid.
Does he though? Because
Texas Chainsaw 2 isn't in this universe. Texas Chainsaw is. Chop Top wasn't brought in until Texas Chainsaw 2. Right. As the twin brother of Nubbins.
Right. But Texas Chainsaw 2 is the sequel to the original Texas Chainsaw, obviously. Yes. Can't believe I have to say that. But in this discussion, but I'm just saying, like, but isn't that the same continuity?
No. Texas Chainsaw 3D is one of those legacy sequels that's like, no, this is a direct line from Texas Chainsaw.
Right. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Because this
so there's no Chop Top, only Nubbins.
God damn it. This is the most franchisey franchise that we've done so far.
It's one of those franchises that, like, not to steal a Mitch Hedberg bit, but it's one of those franchises that's like has different people running it. So like some have different things that other ones don't have.
Right.
Like I used to work at a Godfather's Pizza and we would get calls for like this kind of like garlic bread or something that we didn't sell, but another franchise did because it was owned by a different company. It's ridiculous.
So this version does not have the garlic bread that you're looking for.
The garlic bread that is Chop Top.
It
does not exist.
Yes, right.
Yeah, all we have is Nubbins.
Right. Good God. Okay, so cut to two teens are on a country road and they almost hit a pig in the middle of the road. Inside the pig carcass is a little kid wearing a mask, and I did admit I kind of liked that little bit. When he crawls out. Cool. The mask is cool. When he crawls out of the pig carcass, it's really trying hard, but it worked for me. I kind of liked it.
I was early enough in the thing that I'm like, okay, we're doing some different stuff here. This is kind of fun.
Yeah.
I found out later they leave it out of the movie, so I can't be too mad at them for it. But initially, the couple, that is Betty Hartman, as we find, Sheriff Hartman's daughter, and Ted Hardesty.
Yes.
Who is going to be like the parent of Franklin and Sally. Great. Okay. No. Yeah. Like that's completely unnecessary. And just no. It also, again, as far as like a horror thing to me, reduces how the scariness of it, because it just makes it seem like, oh, this is a problem with this group of people, rather than being like, that could have been you. That could have been you doing that. It was more like, no, it's this, turns out it's this family feud that ties it all together. No, I like that the part of the fear of the first one is that this just happened. You just turned down the wrong road and there you go.
Right. So they follow the kid into the corn, and the woman follows him into a barn, and she manages to fall through the floor. She lands in some sort of like trap, almost
it's like it was a pit trap of some kind.
Trap, some sort of like saw trap or something. And they promptly drop a car engine on her. Yes, that's kind of brutal. That worked. Yeah. And,
again, so I guess this is pre them eating people.
I was going to ask. Yeah,
I feel like so much of that has just gone out the window.
Yeah,
particularly like in this go round. So in the R. Lee Ermey one, they were at least eating people. This one, it just seems like in the stuff around the sequel and the prequel. Yeah, I'm just here for the killing, and they drop, which was very brutal. But then the sheriff shows up. The cops. It cuts to the sheriff shows up, and I assumed that the boy Ted or whatever like called it in or something. But then later it's revealed that Drayton found the body. So did Drayton call it in?
Drayton Sawyer. This time it ain't the Gorman house. Nah. You grown up now. That means a gas chamber for you.
For what? You arresting me for finding a body?
So why would he call it in?
Is it just, or is it, some kind of like, I'm just toying with the cops? I don't know. They're like, whatever, let's just get this thing going.
Sure.
We just need Steven Dorff to have motivation. So
There
let's
you
just
go.
get him going.
Yeah.
Who's normally, I'm not a big Steven Dorff fan, but I like older Steven Dorff.
Sure.
I think a lot more.
He's been in stuff that I've liked, and I was kind of excited to see him. Like, this was like, oh, we got Dorff, we got Lily Taylor. Like, there could be something to this.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like either one of them got enough to really do. You know?
I mean, they were still good at what they did, but it would have been nice to give them a bit more.
Right. Dorff definitely, he declares that he will take all the Sawyer kids over because of like child endangerment. Like, I'm going to take all your kids.
He's not under arrest. He's under protection from you.
What are you talking about?
I can't count how many crime scenes I've been to where there just happen to be Sawyers there already. Them kids ain't safe with you.
Poor shit.
Apparently, this is a thing that he does. Jed gets sent to the Gorman house, which is a family for wayward youth. And apparently the inmates...
The Psycho Gorman house.
Psycho Gorman house. But yeah, and then their kids are renamed to... I was not clear on that because it sounds like in some cases they were taken in... Like in this case, he's taken from protection from his family. That's like, no, the problem is I'm tired of you, Verna, you and Drayton, Beefy Drayton, and all these people killing stuff. I'm taking Jed away, so he'll be safe. So we're going to change his name so you can't find him and he won't know you. Then there's got to be other people that are just in there to be in there. They're like, no, we changed everybody's name.
I mean, this was so hand wavy, it knocked me over.
Yeah.
Like it was like one of the hand waviest hand wave of any screenwriting I've ever seen. Just like, oh, we just changed names.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the movie requires us not to know who Leatherface is.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, okay, it's that guy later on, but
yeah. We'll definitely get to the reveal, and just like the whole process of that, like that mystery was so stupid.
Yeah,
and it's like immediately you can kind of be like, well, that guy's a red herring.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be. I bet it's that guy.
Yeah,
and it's just like it's not even that fun to go through. But yeah, it is. It did seem kind of weird. There's like, hey, boy named Sue. Guess what? You're not Sue anymore, so now you're fine. Now your problems are solved. You will never kill again.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help that it's run by basically Jack Kevorkian. Like they cast the most fucking Boris Karloff-y guy you could get.
I mean, that kind of rules though. Like, I mean, I enjoy that kind of casting for sure. Give those guys work.
Sure, yeah. But it's just like he'd be fine, but they really went out of their way to like give him big sunken eyes and just be like,
love it.
Oh, the children. I mean, it doesn't sound that ridiculous, but
So we meet Lizzie, and she's getting a tour of the hospital.
New nurse.
Yes, she's a new nurse, and it's all the classic stuff. Like, they were in prisons or mental institutions, and now they're here. It's just like horror movie cliche after cliche for our mental institution.
Yeah.
She meets Jackson, one of the other kids at the hospital, and a fight breaks out between him and Bud. Manages to save her from like an assault at that point, and Bud is like a big curly-haired Leatherface-esque kid. So
yeah, he's pretty much nonverbal.
Yep.
He's quiet, and he seems harmless enough. It's revealed that during that dust up with our other inmate Ike,
right,
that he is capable of violence.
Of violence, yeah. She meets another girl, Clarice. She is trying to stuff a mouse into another girl's mouth, and for whatever reason, I was like, that's suitably uncomfortable. I kind of like that.
Well, because it's not just any mouse. I mean, that's because when they
it's a Mighty Mouse.
She stops it. It's Mighty Mouse. It was an unexpected cameo.
Yeah.
No, it's like a hairless mouse.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me thinking. And I did a little informal poll on my Instagram about what would be worse, having a hairless mouse in your mouth or a regular style mouse.
What did it come out to?
At this point, because I don't think it ends until another hour, but I think that the regular style has a pretty significant lead.
I guess so, because if you feel all the fur, that is a little bit different.
I don't know. Like if it's, I have nothing to base it on because I have not had a mouse in my mouth, and I'm not about to test this hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
I think the hair would be upsetting, but I think the fact if something's rambling around in there, and then it also kind of has the texture of an ear, like that's
I don't
know.
Right.
There's also a certain amount. I mean, I'm going to cut this, but there's also a certain amount. Like, am I just being homophobic? Because it's kind of like
looking.
You know?
I was looking for a window right there, but I was just like, well, obviously, John Myers, you don't want a penis in your mouth, and that's fine.
Well,
but
or I would like it to be hairier.
You're more of a balls man, but Mama Sawyer, who is now Mrs. Carson. Wants to see Jed. This is Lily Taylor. She demands to see Jed, and she's already gotten an injunction. And so there's all this like legalese right here that doesn't matter a lick at all. She just wants to see him. The doctor says no. That's all you need to know.
It's where it's revealed that she's a Carson now, which matters if you care about the continuity of the first one. That now she has money, and that's why she has all that. Which we should talk about because we've already been to the farmhouse. They rebuilt that farmhouse.
That's impressive.
The first one, which is really cool. And in fact, because they did that and kind of built the barn and all this stuff, the directors were like, "Well, hey, we did this, so like let's do more stuff here." So they kind of reorganized and rewrote some things. So there's some of the stuff that I'm not ready to put entirely at the feet of Seth Sherwood,
right? In
terms of like how it all plays out, but stuff changes. They were reshoots. There's always reshoots, but you just wonder kind of what it was originally. But so you get this whole like it's the system, man, that she can't. It's so slow, and the doctor knows it's slow and is using it against her.
We'll have to check the records to be certain.
That's bullshit.
And that requires an entirely different court order. The records are very sensitive. Get me the correct court order. I'll be happy to help you.
Oh, that one took 3 months to get.
And I advise you to get on it quick.
And so she decides to take matters into her own hands. Oh, well, while she's doing that, the punishment for the fight between Bud and Ike. To be nice here, I do think that the guy who played Ike, James Bloor, was good as that kind of character. Like a particular kind of menace to that, just that shithead kind of guy.
Yep.
I thought he did it well. But he and Bud are getting electroshock treatment. Mm-hmm. Bud is specifically getting electroshock treatment, and Ike is like tied down and made to watch.
That's sadistic, and I kind of liked it in a shitty way.
It makes sense. But if you're a hospital for sadists, why would you be like, well, this guy gets a treat?
Right. Yeah. So it is such the classic like mental hospital torture chamber. A couple of doctors are like trimming up Bud's hair to, like they really like
electrodes.
Lay into it. All the while, the rest of the facility is bedding down for the night. And that's where we see Mama Sawyer has been hiding in the ladies' room. And I do love that one guy is just like, I ain't going in there. I ain't going in the women's restroom to like check that out. She does manage to overpower a guard and starts yelling for her son. And that wakes up all the other kids. And wait, I called him Jed Bud. That's the same person, right? Jed Bud. Yeah.
Well, there's
right. We know is getting strapped down for electroshock treatment. He busts free in very much, as you have mentioned before, the Roger Rabbit rules of him busting free. He just in time to beat a couple of guards to death. All the while, the kids upstairs are getting free. So just when it was awesome for him to bust out of that is when he could.
And it's getting mayhemy. And overall, I liked this bit. The first like half hour of this movie, a fair amount of it feels like what you imagined horror movies were like when you were a kid.
Sure.
Like just look at the covers. You're like, there's probably not a story. It's just people murdering each other in the most heinous ways possible. And in fact, there's a point where there's like a couple of nurses hiding. Well, it's Lizzie, another nurse hiding, and this guy just shows up and starts pulling the teeth out of one of the nurses.
Yes.
And the lights are flickering, and it's very creepy and effective. And so that was kind of cool. And then you have Clarice is upstairs murdering the girl she was shoving the mouse into earlier because she was making eyes at Ike.
Right.
She's choking her. And so, just all hell is breaking loose, and they all take the opportunity to escape.
We do see Jed makes it to the doctor's office where he smashes his head against the window until it breaks.
Bud
does. Sorry. Yep. See, that's going to be a back and forth right here because I was just like, oh, that, is that guy,
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. But I did like how he leaves the body of the doctor out the broken window.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. Yeah, just jams his head to glass till it breaks, and then the doctor sort of left in this sort of genuflecting position, and like the glass is poking into his, and that was pretty creepy.
That worked. Again, separate Texas Chainsaw from this. This could be like a fun,
right,
like nasty horror movie.
Because I'm with you already. As like, I don't care which one of these people are Leatherface.
Yeah.
None of them seem like they're Leatherface, so it's fine.
Right. Kids all end up rioting. Two of them have sex in the hallway during the riot.
Yeah, because it's again.
Because we
can
have
we
to
make Leatherface horny?
Well, just
Leatherface isn't really horny, but we have to be horny in this movie. We are French.
We are French horny. In a strobe light sequence, a kid tears the tongue out of a nurse's mouth in front of Lizzie, and then Jackson appears and saves her, like bludgeoning the kid. All this is like actually pretty good.
Yeah.
They immediately get captured, and as they drive away, a kid in a wheelchair is pushed out a window, which I was just like, that was kind of a great, like, Bugs Bunny, just like, fuck you ending to that scene.
Right. Well, it was again, good. Just that, like, just unnecessary violence. Like, yeah, this shit's terrible.
Right.
Here you go.
That works.
Yeah. So when they escape from the hospital, like Ike is there waiting. They snag the nurse and Jackson, put him in the car, and then as they're driving away, they find Bud. And Clarice is not happy that the nurse is there.
You just had to bring the prettiest nurse along with us, didn't you?
Oh, I didn't pick her. No, Jackson did. You got no reason to be jealous.
Why'd I be jealous of someone who's about to die?
Now I guess we have our teenage crew. So who is in our crew? Let's take stock here. Lizzie the nurse. We've got Bud.
The
big guy, Leatherface, red herring.
Yep.
We've got.
Or is he?
He is. We got Ike.
Jackson.
We
have Clarice. Who, if there are fans of Bridgerton listening, that is actress Jessica Madsen, who is Cressida Cowper. I've never watched Bridgerton, but I know it's a thing.
It is a thing. Was this before Bridgerton?
Oh yeah, after? Bridgerton was 2020.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
because there's a scene later where I'm watching. I'm like, man, I hope she has a career after this. This sucks.
Oh, good grief! Yes, good for her. Yeah,
she's doing all right.
She could have taken those skills to Bridgerton. I hear it's a horny show.
I guess so. Yeah. I don't haven't seen it. Can't judge.
So we've got our 5 teenagers. We're back to 5 instead of 4. Who's the odd man out in this crew? I guess it would be Bud.
It's really Bud, because then this is the first time that Bud is really a red herring, because Bud is kind of a non-entity through most of this. And how are you going to do a prequel for a character that you're not really spending any time?
But don't forget, he's on the poster.
He's on the poster. Well, young Jed is on the poster.
Young Jed is on the poster.
Yeah, and that's also a thing too.
Body
where
type very much of Bud's.
Well, more of Jackson's, because he's a slender little boy. Actually, more of Ike's
on the poster.
Yeah, it's a little kid. Oh no, because there's one of Bud. Actually, there's different posters. That's the thing. Because why not make this more confusing? Yeah. Because there's one that's a kid hauling the chainsaw out, and there's one of Bud dragging a dude.
Right, because Bud is the bigger one, and I was just like, well, there's our
They got us. They
The schism in Hurt a Bit was deep.
Yeah, it just means that this movie's great. That they worked.
So cops show up to investigate the death of the doctor, and this is where you get the great body like leaning out of the window. The main cop is Hal Hartman, Stephen Dorff from the beginning. He's starting a manhunt and describing Jed as pure evil. So we're getting a little Dr. Loomis bullshit going from him.
Knowing these kids the way I do, they ain't giving up easy.
I understand.
I don't think you do. Just because they're kids, I don't want your men going soft. They got to shoot first and let God sort it out. Well, that's permissible. You copy that?
Copy.
But as you find out that he's responsible for most of the kids being in there, that was sort of like his deal. And he is, canonically speaking, he is the dad of the shitty mayor in Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Oh, right.
Who's the dad of Clint Eastwood's kid.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's all
Again,
connected.
it's just like, yeah. And that's the thing. He's like, because he makes a reference later to like, oh, you're a Sawyer, which that just, it never worked.
No,
that shit just
no.
never worked for me. I mean, I'm glad they're not Hewitts anymore. And I'm
There
a
you
little
go.
bummed that we never made a Jennifer Love Hewitt joke throughout the entirety of that. But I think that's, or you could look at it as
Missed.
some restraint on our parts.
I mean, we know
We
how
don't
to
go for
pull
the
back.
lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
But, you know,
As often as possible, but
yeah. But so sometimes you got to reach a little bit.
so there is an image coming up here where Bud, who is still our ostensive like Leatherface, like that's what the movie is trying to convey right here. So
Yeah.
Bud is walking across the field with these other kids, just being a kid on an adventure.
Yeah. Like Stand By Me.
Yeah, it's just shot that could be out of like a Spielberg movie or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And I'm just like, man, this takes so much away from the mythos of Leatherface. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm just on an adventure with my other 5 friends. We just sprung from the mental institute. It's just something about that shot just really rubbed me the wrong way.
Well, and we've also, because we've already come from this like insane orgy of violence. You're sitting there going, okay, so what's going to be the thing then? Because that was all awful. You know what I mean? Like that was
Yeah.
a harrowing experience. Or what's going to be the tipping point here?
Right. Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Right now, perhaps. They stop at a diner serving barbecue because, of course, they do.
It's Texas.
Yeah.
That's all that anyone can eat in Texas.
No greens.
Yeah.
They want food, money, and to grab a car. Ike and Clarice are having like a great time, like kind of canoodling. A very Mickey and Mallory.
Yeah.
Very the beginning of Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
I believe.
Bunny and Honey Bunny and whatever.
Right. So it's very much that style of like road heist movie that starts. Jackson is a little bit more reserved.
I wish this was just normal. I wish we were just 2 people here at a diner, you know. I wish I was somebody else.
And of course, Ike identifies a guy with a gun, and they decide to completely randomly just start some shit in a diner.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have to.
Yeah, she breaks a glass and then immediately like stabs a cop in the neck to take his gun.
Yep.
And they just start murdering everyone. Bud, meanwhile, is just outside, I guess. The murders in the diner wouldn't bother me so much, but it's just the scene is just so lackluster.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what they were going for there, because it wasn't necessarily just that like, oh, isn't this violence awful? Because it didn't really have that feel to it. But it also wasn't like fun or anything. Like it just kind of they just sort of did some really graphic stuff.
The point blank waitress murder.
Yes.
That made me feel a little bit like, oh, this is awful. Like that.
Yes.
That made me feel gross.
But then the gore effect was pretty
funny.
So yeah, they immediately just went, don't worry about it.
Yeah. We're so far from a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie at this point.
Are we though? Because what is a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie at this point?
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, occurrences happening in one remote home is what I want. That, you know?
Yeah.
Instead, you know, now we're on the road. We've got a road movie where we're destroying people in a diner.
Yeah.
Now it feels different.
Right. Most of like the first 2 are about covering your ass.
There you go.
You know, and now it's like, no, it doesn't matter. We're just sort of doing whatever.
Remember the inciting incidents of the second movie where it's just like they play a murder on the radio and Drayton's just like, you can't do that.
Right.
You know, now we're just slaughtering a diner and it doesn't matter.
But how else would they have learned? You know,
Right.
unless they just wantonly murdered people.
Right.
And that's actually what Leatherface brings they were going to do a sequel where Leatherface explains to them, like, most people don't like killing.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that's very interesting.
They leave the diner and the kids abandon the car and they walk through the woods and find a trailer. And Lizzie finds the body of an old woman who's hung herself.
As a guy.
It's an old guy, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
She then tries to tend to Bud, who I guess did Bud get hit on the way out of the diner?
On the way out of the diner, one of the guys that they were popping off to, he was shooting at them and Bud took a shot to the gut.
That night they drink some moonshine. Ike and Clarice have sex, and it's revealed that Clarice has burn marks or some sort of skin condition or something all over her. Yeah, fine. Then I just wrote, wait, then she starts kissing the body of the dead person.
Yeah.
Necrophiliac threesome, because it's extreme.
That's really my big issue with it. Is it just felt so like try hard? Like it just felt so like, oh, but look at this. What if there was the dead body in the bed with them? Oh, look at that.
Right.
And it's
and
just
not
like
just a body in the bed, but then she starts interacting with it and like making out with it. And I was like,
it's okay. Like these characters are already like not likable or anything, whatever. But it didn't do anything. Like it just felt like
didn't do anything for you. Is that what you're saying?
It weirdly didn't. No, not like putting a mouse in my mouth. But it just felt like really edgelord shit. Like we were just like, oh, but look what we're doing. It's like, okay, I don't know. It's just it was gross in a way that was like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Is really what it is.
That's such a funny line. Like, and I think about that a lot. And maybe it has to do with age.
Yeah.
You know, but the whole edgelord, like, I mean, I'm watching a horror movie, so I expect certain nasty things to happen. But why don't I want to see something grosser and grosser? But it's the way it's presented. And that could be a whole podcast to itself, I think, is an interesting idea.
There's an Italian horror film, Beyond the Darkness. It's okay. It's not great. Great soundtrack by Goblin. But it's Joe D'Amato, a classic Italian schlock master, Joe D'Amato. That part of the movie involves a guy like digs up his deceased girlfriend and keeps her alive. It keeps her corpse like, and there's some gross stuff around that, but it's like that horror is surrounded by all this other stuff. This just seems like, and what if she kissed a dead body?
Yeah.
It just is. It doesn't fit in with anything. And it's also just like the fact that these characters have already been so like extreme or whatever. It's, to me, that feels a lot like Rob Zombie shit.
Yeah.
That like, yeah. And this too. What about also this?
Right. Yeah. Hat on a dead hat.
Yes. Hat on a dead hat.
Ike is convinced that Lizzie knows where all the foster families that wronged them are, even though she's never looked at, she's only had access to their medical charts. So he's implying that, she has seen records, everybody who's wronged these kids, like their addresses and like their contact info and that kind of stuff. So like he wants to hatch a revenge plan to go see all of them.
Yeah, initially the plan was just to get to Mexico because and then no one leaves because if one of you runs away, I'll kill everybody else.
Right.
So you're staying with me. But then it becomes like, well, what we should do is we should get all these people that wronged us. And there's a certain amount of I don't care from the kids and from me. But
50 minutes into this, we don't need another new plot thread. Lizzie tries to make a break for it, but Ike finds her anyway. And before he can assault her, essentially, Jackson comes out of nowhere and beats him, and Clarice breaks them up with a shotgun.
I got a plan and we're sticking to it. You take these two back to the trailer, okay? Don't take your eyes off me. Bud, you're an idiot and a fool, and I don't know why God bothered to make you. Now get away from me. Bud
takes Ike and then just reenacts the famous scene from American History X.
Yeah, the Kirby.
Yeah. Brutal. And again, so again, supposed to be this red herring of oh, but look at the torture and violence that Bud is responsible for, or, that is capable of. Again, he hasn't been around. So why is this his origin story? Why would this be his origin story if he's not around doing anything? So already you're kind of not really paying attention to Bud. And it's just let's do some horrible violence, which is so funny that we talked about already. And in fact, Seth Sherwood talked about this in that Blumhouse interview, finding out how not bloody the first one was. Imagining it's going to be so much worse and being terrified of it, and then seeing it, being terrified, and later going back and being like, there's really not a lot of blood in this. And the French guy's going yeah, but that's not scary. So we need to have just more stuff. It's still, it's an effective scene. It was uncomfortable watching it, and it was awful, but I was just thinking about American History X.
Yeah, nobody likes Kirby, and that was made popular by that movie. Other three go looking for Bud. They find him curled up asleep on the body of a very bloody Ike. So he's worried about it. He doesn't feel good about the whole thing, and But I do like that line because the camera is following them, and then Lizzie is following Jackson, and Jackson's like, you don't want to see this. And the camera's like, yeah, but I do. And it just zooms over. And you see the dead body and Bud laying on top of it. Clarice has no idea this has happened. The cops show up. They hold her at gunpoint, smack her, and then try to get out of her, where the others are. Hartman just shoots her in the back from a distance. They get one of those big dramatic shots. I mean, I don't want to say it was ineffective, but it was definitely like, aren't we nihilistic? Like by this point, I was starting to slip off the good graces of this movie. And even like the nihilism just started feeling a little try-hardy, I guess.
Yeah, because it is, there's a certain amount of like, we just spent all this time with this character being awful to no end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even that like, oh, well, she needed a karmic comeuppance and that would have made sense or something like that. But it was all just awful and terrible. She was just this horrible psychopath and just gets shot in the head unceremoniously.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't seem like that fits with the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That just kind of like, you want to make big deals about some deaths, but not others. And this one kind of just was like, yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I think just because you've been so try-hardy with a lot of this stuff that I'm kind of numb to a lot of it.
Yeah.
It was surprising that that was like, it was just sort of an ignominious death, like just this boom, but not in a way that was jarring or I think spoke to any sort of horrible, this is a horrible life ended abruptly. And then it doesn't really, this violence leads to nothing. You don't even get like a dramatic, amazing death or something. Right. It just sort of felt like, well, that was a thing that happened.
Yeah.
That's we're done with her now. Let's move on. We know that she's not Leatherface.
There you go. More cops come out with dogs. Turns out the kids hid inside of a dead cow carcass. So feels kind of gory Scooby-Doo, but I was kind of okay with it.
You're just running between cow carcasses like the door gag.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, like, it's odd that they could all three fit in there.
This is a big. Cows are bigger in Texas, baby. I
guess that's true. In Bulgaria, Texas, they got the biggest cows.
Right.
That was needlessly disgusting, but I'm for it. Like, that was pretty great.
Yeah.
Well, because also when one of them like cuts it open to like make a little eye hole and peek. And
right.
It's like, oh.
And you thought they smelled bad on the outside. So they wash off in a lake and then they walk over a bridge and
well, Lizzie sees a cop drive by and is like, oh, hey, now the people that have been actively trying to kill me are done. Maybe we can play off that I don't really care what happens to these guys. I just want to be safe, but I feel less in danger around these guys. And when they get up there, cop actually calls for backup and then ends up shooting Bud. And that's part of why Jackson is so pissed.
Right.
He loved Bud. So we know, oh, wow, Bud is dead. What a surprise. He's not Leatherface. Who cares?
Who could it be?
Yeah, who could it be? And then while they're riding away from the cops, Hartman shoots into the car, shoots Jackson through the cheek. And it was a pretty like awesome bit of gore.
Yeah, it was
pretty gross.
It was a good shot.
And so like I guess that's going to explain Leatherface not being able to speak, but it's also that like, is this supposed to be what does it then? Like that, just Bud dying?
Bud dying and him getting winged in the cheek by a cop's bullet.
Yeah. I mean, it's a palpable hit, but it is
right.
It's just like, oh, okay, that's gross. But if you're watching this with the mindset of like, this is Leatherface's origin story, it's really just like, oh,
yeah.
Fine. It's like watching like a Joker origin story, and he's just the ice cream machine at McDonald's was broken, and so he's like, I'm going to become the Joker, and you're like, that was it.
That was it. Yeah. They end up flipping the car. She manages to call in on the radio to let another cop know where she's at. And it's nighttime now. So I did notice that like we've jumped in time there. Hartman takes her to a barn and reveals that Jackson, not Bud, as we've figured out by now, is Jedediah Sawyer.
There is no Jackson, honey. It's Jed. Jedediah Sawyer.
What are you doing to him?
I'm setting things right.
Yawn.
Yeah.
He's chained up, but still alive. It's just like, well, this is the killing spree that was started by the girl at the beginning, and now we're coming full circle back to the barn, and it just feels so anticlimactic.
I don't know who had the idea, because this is it's certainly not the first movie that did that. Why do you want us to have a connection with Leatherface?
Yeah.
Like, why is that an important thing? Like, his being human, for lack of a better word, like in the second one, Stretch kind of like using that to her advantage, and it's still kind of scary when he is, because he's still paying attention to you. So it's like, that's bad. This one, it's like, I don't need to identify with him in any.
Yeah.
Why is that important to you that I do this? That's also like makes him less scary if you're trying to explain it. And it's just, I don't care. I don't care the mystery. I don't care why he is the way he is part of the fear of it. Is like what the fuck is with this guy? And so when you tell me, it's like, well, he was sad that his friend got shot.
Yeah, it's like when Leatherface in part 2 is feeling empathetic, he still feels like very creepy.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this primal level of empathy and stuff like that, instead of like creating a backstory.
Right. It's almost like the what's his name? Lenny from Of Mice and Men, where you're like, oh, he's going to like crush her. He's not like, whether or not he means to.
Totally.
He's just, all he does is violence. Like this is going to be bad. Whereas this isn't like, I don't want to go like, oh, well, that's too bad. Someone should help Leatherface. Like,
Right.
that just misses the whole point of it to me.
Sure. Cop runs into Mama Sawyer, tells her that her boy is being held hostage in the barn. She pays him for the info. I guess she's got like some like network of cops out there.
That there was the whole time that Stephen Dorff's deputy was secretly working for the
Sawyers. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
But then another family member runs up and stabs the cop, and then tosses him into the pig pen for the pigs to devour him.
Oh shit! I just realized that deputy, that is Finn Jones, who was in Marvel's Iron Fist. Yeah,
like the Iron Fist.
He was the
right?
Iron Fist. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
From the misfired one. That also he takes a lot of shit and probably rightfully so. But there's this, I was reading about it where like the production of that movie or that show, that they'd be like, oh, we're doing an action scene. And he's like, what? I didn't get any training for this. Like, guess what? Action scene time. Yeah.
You know, the best martial artist from the quote unquote Far East. They didn't, train him up. Poor guy.
Yep. No. Yeah. Well, that training costs money, and that's not what we're about.
She gets to the barn just as the cop has dropped an engine again, right? So he starts yelling about Werner Sawyer. We got a new guy in a bag head down there too. Did you notice him? That's our
Jackson.
He's our new bag head. He looks up at the hole from like, a dramatic, like low angle shot. And that shot was okay, but it was just like, I don't know what they're doing here. Yeah, well,
it kind of felt like, because they're like, oh, well, the family is rescuing him and bringing him up. So like back to their embrace. That's not built on anything.
Yeah.
I can see what you're going for there, but it's not. You're just telling me you're not like there's no emotional weight behind any of this.
Sure. And
it's a Texas Chainsaw movie, but it's like you have to put in the legwork in order for that to work.
Mama's back at the house and she starts sewing up Jackson's face. She puts this weird leather strap onto his face like a muzzle to hold him all together.
Yeah, it's just the fact that it's like, well, we've done this before. It has that feeling like that's something. It's like, why would you know how to do that? That just seems.
Right.
Again, it's kind of hand wavy, like, no, Mama's got you. I'm ready for anything. And I do think, like you said, it's a little bit of a bummer that Lily Taylor doesn't get enough to do, because they're setting up like in that opening scene where she's like telling people to murder, people. They're setting up that like this dynamic where she's perhaps this overbearing matriarch or something.
Yeah.
No, nothing.
Yeah.
Just nothing. It's about as much as the mama from the Platinum Dunes averse ones.
Oh, sure.
Like, oh, you hate my son.
Yeah.
So it's okay that he kills you.
I did right here. Lizzie is still alive, because we've kind of forgotten about her for a while. Finds a cop that's still alive. They go into the house and we see a bunch of close-ups on what will become all the bone sculptures and the furniture and that kind of stuff, which was
okay. Just in the context of these three movies.
Which three movies?
Okay. In the context of Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Got it.
Texas Chainsaw 3D posits that it's really Leatherface is the problem.
Yes.
Because that's the whole thing. Like they just want Leatherface. We should give up Leatherface. Okay. But we're Sawyer's Leatherface. And this one, they're like, no, we've been building bone sculptures and shit. You weren't around, so we just went ahead and did that.
Right.
So it's what are you getting at here?
Yeah.
What's the like? have some kind of like consistency throughout. But
Yes.
that's the Texas Chainsaw movie, so absolutely not.
Right.
Who's been building those things? And if it's like that's already happening, then Leatherface being crazy doesn't really matter.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like you're focused on who could this guy possibly be? Who cares? The whole family is building bone sculptures. He's not even around for it.
Yeah. Was that Drayton? Was that Nubbins?
Nubbins? Yeah, it could be Nubbins.
I suppose so. It's
Nubbins did have as a hitchhiker, he did have a little bit of an artistic bent with the,
There you
taking
go.
photos and stuff like that.
Drayton finds the kids in the original entryway. So we're ending in that original entryway of the house. They call for Jed. Can we call him Jed at this point?
Absolutely, we can call him Jed.
And he moves all weird now. He's carrying a chainsaw. So obviously a bullet to the cheek affects the way you walk.
Mm-hmm.
So he's stumbling around, like kind of limping. So the cop is like on the couch and Leatherface goes at him and cuts off his hands as he puts them up to guard himself, which was like kind of gnarly and like well done. I like that bit. But like the whole thing kind of didn't matter ultimately, but like I liked that little bit of attack.
Well, and part of this, you talk about the Mickey and Mallory thing, is like, who am I supposed to be rooting for in any of this?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, who am I supposed to be on the side of? Because like Mickey and Mallory, you have like in Natural Born Killers that they're awful, but then the people chasing them are awful, are corrupt and terrible in their own way. Okay, maybe that's making a larger point. This is just, everyone's shitty. And like, well, you killed my daughter, so I'm going to get your stuff. Well, how dare you do that? I'm going to kill you now.
Sure.
And so then later when the mob goes to get him, that seems more justified.
Yeah.
It's just that there's just some of this stuff just doesn't feel like it was thought through.
Mm-hmm. At that point, he just saws the cop right in the chest with his favorite chainsaw. Lizzie gets away and Jed gives chase with the chainsaw. It's hard to really know what's going on here, but as she's about to get sawed, she tries to reason with him, saying,
"Please, don't do this. I tried to help you. That's all I ever tried to do." And
it's such the like Luke and Vader, like, I know there's good in you, let go of your hate type of crap.
Well, it's also frustrating because they do this prolonged, maybe it just felt prolonged because I was ready for this movie to be over, but chase through the woods.
Yeah.
I was like, I remember that from the first one. Here's the thing. A killer stalking someone through the woods isn't specifically Texas Chainsaw. Like
it's all of them.
That's not, it's this sort of reduction into just a slasher villain where it's, this isn't that interesting. And I don't know.
Right.
Also that the turn didn't really feel like much of anything. So who cares? There's nothing. This all feels very weightless.
Yeah. I couldn't tell if they were trying to make something out of this because she says, "It's your crazy mother." I'm like, are they trying to hang all of Leatherface's stuff on his mother? Are we going psycho here?
It seems a little bit like that, but they didn't do the legwork for that. And you have Lily Taylor. That would have been great if you spent some more time with that. But
I mean, I'm not saying I wanted that, but I'm just saying, like, are we getting Jason? Are we getting Anthony Perkins? Etc. Here?
It would have helped it make sense or be at all interesting,
right? And of course, then he just saws her head off. Cut to dumping body parts in the pig trough, and we end with a dolly in on Leatherface sewing face pieces together onto the brace that his mom gave him. So there's like a little structure for him to work with here. And he puts on the face and a little bit of lipstick.
Is the idea here then is like, well, he got shot in the head, so he's trans now. Like what like the whole, like that gender aspect of it, if they just didn't even touch it, it would have been better.
Right.
Because it just make it seem like it's like, well, now that he's crazy.
Yeah.
Where rather than that being like part of whatever his whole thing is, or like, it's left to you to decide kind of what's going on. This just makes it seem like more direct, like, well, he's crazy now. So boys don't wear lipstick.
Right. Well, let's honor our dead. Unnamed poacher, hammered to death by Grandpa. Betty Hartman, played by Lorena Cambruva, smashed by car engine in pit. 2 orderlies, beaten to death by Bud. Female patient, strangled by Clarice with her own hair. Dr. Lang, played by Christopher Adamson, bashed into window repeatedly by Bud. Nurse, stabbed in the mouth by patient. Male patient, stomped to death by Jed. Unnamed orderly, pushed through the window by patient. Male diner customer, stabbed in the neck by Clarice. Male diner customer, shot in the face by Clarice. Male diner chef, shot in the face by Clarice. Tammy, played by Nicole Andrews, shot in the face by Ike. Ike, played by James Bloor, face crushed against rock by Bud. Clarice, played by Jessica Madsen, shot in the head by Hal Hartman. Bud Horton, played by Sam Coleman, shot in the head by a deputy. Deputy, car door slammed on his head by Jed. Deputy Sorrells, played by Finn Jones, fed alive to pigs. Nurse Lizzie White, played by Vanessa Gass, decapitated by Leatherface with chainsaw. Ranger Hal Hartman, played by Stephen Dorff, sliced open with chainsaw. Yeah, high body count on this one.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'd like to believe this could be an okay horror movie if you divorce it from Texas Chainsaw. But even that would be a little bit of a stretch for me. There are some good bits, but
yeah,
it's just so hard because the whole purpose of this show is examining how these sequels go. But I'm finding it increasingly difficult to separate a sequel from its original. And this is such, like, the Texas Chainsaw is becoming, patient zero for that for me.
Yeah, well, because they like these last couple specifically want to tie it to the first one.
Right.
Those other ones are like that's, I think that's why the other one, like 2 doesn't bother so much, because it's like, whatever, like we're the same people, but we're silly now.
Yeah.
Whereas like this still wants to have that, for lack of a better word, that prestige of being attached to the first one, but it doesn't really want to be attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like by name only, again, that we like what we were talking about last time with Rob, that sort of wanting of authenticity.
Yep.
But also like eschewing it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And it's as confused as this movie.
Right.
As far as being another movie, this is a weird thing to think about, but it honestly made me think of Jesus Rolls.
Interesting.
Jesus Rolls
aspect.
Well, Jesus Rolls is a movie made by John Turturro, and it's a sequel of sorts to The Big Lebowski about his character, but really it's a remake of this French movie called Going Places.
Yeah.
That he just put Jesus into.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what it feels like this, where it's like, this feels like this was another movie, and like particularly like a European, like with the French New Extreme, whatever, like these, we got this group of insane asylum people breaking out and having this violent adventure, stuff like that. Also Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah.
It felt very unnecessary to have any of it tied to Texas. Like if this was just like we sort of talked about, if this seems like a Rob Zombie road trip movie or something.
Mm-hmm.
It might not have been my favorite, but just to try to like use that as the origin story for this unknowable horror from the Texas Chainsaw, just like I didn't need it. Much like Jesus Rolls. It's like I didn't need this explanation of Jesus. I didn't need this.
Right.
It's all terrible.
And it's even harder with some of these now that I'm getting to the point of, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in the wrap up, where it's like, because I love the original so much, it's harder for me to split these now, I think it routinely shows the power of the first one. That it's like you're never gonna reach that height, and it's that there's no question of what do? Do you just try to remake the same? You take a big swing. This one took a big swing, but unfortunately, it wasn't in the ballpark at all. It was standing outside. Yeah,
it was in France or whatever. I'm being needlessly anti-European because I can't blame the Italians for this.
Yeah.
But it is frustrating because it seems repeatedly like no one has an idea of what made the first one work.
Yeah.
And I know that can be subjective about what works for you in a movie or whatever, but it just seems like there's just fundamental misunderstandings of what this movie. And to be fair, that when you get into like big studio stuff, a lot of voices get heard.
Yep.
It's not just Seth Sherwood or these Maury and Bastillo, which I'm always kind of fascinated by two directors that like aren't brothers.
Oh, I know.
They're siblings in any capacity. They're just like, oh, we're just two dudes know each other.
Yeah.
Point is that they just can't really come close to what made the first one work, and they keep trying, I think, is the problem.
Yes.
I mean, they'll sort of do their own thing, but it's never. It just feels bad.
Right.
Shouldn't have ever been a franchise. But don't worry, we only have one left, and
I was gonna say
it's
trying to do the first one is kind of happening again.
Yeah.
Next time, I guess I'm gonna have to get Netflix again.
Yeah.
I knew this day was coming. I was telling myself I'll watch the final Texas Chainsaw movie that was straight to Netflix, and I'll watch Cobra Kai.
There you go.
To just sort of balance it out, because I'm excited about that new season. So I'll finally get to doing that.
Have you ever seen The Terror?
I have seen The Terror.
Okay, that's on Netflix. I was going to suggest it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, the first season, love that.
Yeah. I never watched the second season. I don't care about the second season. But folks, if you have Netflix, check out The Terror. It's a really, really good series.
Yeah, while you're firing up the next and final question mark Texas Chainsaw Massacre, watch The Terror while you're at it. But we got
different kind of movie, but
one
series,
more. But this long hot summer is coming to a close.
Yeah, this long hot Bulgarian Texas summer.
Yeah, as we record on a 97-degree day in September.
Knock it off.
Yeah.
Right. Well, like last Saturday, we had this like gray, rainy day. I put on folk horror movie. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm getting in the zone. And now it's hot again. It sucks.
There you go. So, all right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us on this. Fire up Netflix. Watch that last one with that greasy haired Leatherface that I remember.
Yeah.
I've only watched it once, so we'll have to get into that next week.
Let us know what you thought about this one. If this one works for you, if this was your thing. If you're a Bulgarian listener.
Yeah.
Drop us a line.
Do you like the road trip aspect? Do you like them doing something different? Please do. Let us know. But until then, you can find us at This May Hurt a Bit Pod on Instagram, Hurt a Bit Pod on YouTube, and you can email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. So until next week, good night.
Good night.
This has been a Caretaker Press production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review over on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.